Blessed love and peace. So, I mentioned yesterday in a recording, uh, working notes and then noting works. Haha. So this is what we're working on right now. We're doing a tracing. A free. Oh, don't sweat the desk, yo. Seriously, do not sweat the desk. You know you want one like this. So, nah, you gonna have to get one yourself. So don't sweat the desk. Now I say that jokingly, but I don't say that jokingly. I say it lightheartedly, and I'm actually serious. Why? This desk is near about 40 years old. How about that? I had this desk. I utilize this desk. This desk is with me. This desk done accompanies me and guides me in my path of life since middle school. What's happening? So, yeah, it's all crumbled and everything else like that, but it's beautiful. So don't sweat it. Cause what if you had a 40-year-old desk? I say 40. To be honest, it's mine like 35. Actually, no, it's about 36, 37. Let's just make up numbers. 37. If we're gonna round, are we gonna round? Are we gonna truncate? Anyway, we're working on. Oh, I'm supposed to be showing this. You get to see work in action as we share this reasoning joint. So this is you can see a freehand tracing of a freehand drawing of the world at large, on small, from on high. Oh, look at me, smudgy smudge. Haha, not the healthy, healing, powwow type, but the inadvertent artistic type. Oh, and indeed. Anyways, that's not what we're saying at the moment. But hey, concentration. See what happened. See what happened. Pay attention. Pay attention. So this is for one of our work products, which is an originally crafted book with illustration. Aha, straight line. To be honest, this is the first time doing it this way. Usually we draw the lines first and then do the tracing within it. Today, for whatever reason, we did it in a different sequence. But in actuality, in doing it this way, we find it actually easier. The concentration. Ho ho ho, dee dee dee. The ability to see the tracing is easier when drawing the bordering line afterwards. It was just a further, it's easier to see, easier to focus on the interior lines when having yet drawn the exterior lines. So, interesting insight for life, inviting people to settle down, to get settled before drawing lines. There are occasions when drawing lines are helpful and conducive to the settling down process. But at the same time, be aware, be mindful that, be aware, be mindful that there are occasions when it is beneficial to wait on drawing the bordering lines until people are settled naturally, comfortably, organically, cooperatively, and saying, okay, now here's how we're going to draw these lines. Reading portions from Yehoshua at the moment. Amidst the shofar sounding. That beep, beep, beep is not the shofar at the moment, per se. Perhaps. Okay. Did you see all that? Oh, Dina. Alright, I think we got the outline done. Double check. We haven't even got the topic. Oh yeah, we ain't got all that much storage, to be honest. Let's check the storage here. Check the storage out. Alright. Now that's the outline of the continents. Oh, the continents indeed. But we need some water. We need some shui. So the continents ain't so thirsty. We had a topic. What were we supposed to be talking about? Serious. Whoa. All this banter. How about let's pause away from what we're actually doing so that we can make our distraction further concentrated. What were we talking about? What were we saying? Come on. It was just so amazing. Let me pause up for a second. What were we supposed to say? Arrgh. Alright, then me. You know what we're gonna have to do, maybe, sort of? With all that banter, we're gonna have to pause this joint and keep on doing what we're doing. See if I will say we're listening to some Miles Davis, working with the Miles Davis Quintet, featuring a young John Coltrane. That's what the music is when we do this pause. There was some brief insight or whatever to share whilst doing this. It escapes me at the moment, and I'm not going to try to fight and think about it at the moment. I'm just going to keep on doing this work. We're making a book. It's Chapters of Creation. It's actually, this is actually what it was. Chapters of Creation. It's giving a narrative of civilization. Now I'm reminded of what the topic is to share. All right. So, hallelujah. All thanks and praise the Most High. Amidst the beep beep and everything else like that. So, Oti, was there some movement here? Are we still aligned? We can think things are done. We can think things are all secure. And all we got this little bit thing to do. Yeah, right. That little bit of thing to do can take things in all different types of directions. So, don't sleep until it's time to sleep. How about that? Don't sleep till it's time to sleep. You know it's gonna be decent. All right, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. So, this illustration of the rivers and of the world, we've been sharing this for years, since even before going to Denmark. We are gonna have to make an adjustment here, though. We'll make an adjustment. So we do this joint. And all right, let me do a side note and to actually what we're doing, and then return to the actual original side note. How about that? What we're doing is a book. It's an original, a crafted quote unquote book. Simple, but the material is, it's original material, original writing, insightful perhaps. And it's actually lightweight, nice, but it's simple, and we're doing it very labor intensive, taking a lot of time, and maybe just do one copy. In that one copy, we share with kinfolk, and particularly young people, and the idea is people can appreciate it for what it is, not making a digital copy, just this is the original. And then for those that want, particularly youth who have time, who enjoy the material, to study, learn it, and then copy it, make a copy, write the same text, draw their own illustrations, original illustrations, and make a book, and then can sell that book. How about that? So they're doing homework, they're doing studies, but they're also completing a craft, a project, a product. Did I just say product twice? A project, product, whatever. And remuneration for it. So that's their tuition. That's their intuition, their whatever, compensation, salary, however you want to describe that. But anyways, so the one who has like all the knowledge or the studies and like whose rate would be very high to or to multiply this, whatever, do it once and then share with those students who are taking it seriously and working on it. And the students, whether it's young students, teenagers, middle schoolers, adults, or whatever, replicate it, This is the storyboard, essentially. It's like this actually, but this is all the joints here, all the pages of the book, and we draw it out. We write it out by hand. Then I gotta show it. We have a stack over there. Let's show that. We got a stack. Oh, look how neat we are. But over there is a stack of previous joints we do through in recent years. So just take some construction paper, very simple, and put it all together, paste it, all types of environmentally unfriendliness, and then there's the book. And again, my personal rate for services is 5,000 US per hour when it's reduced to money terms. This would be extremely expensive. This is $1 million book right here, basically speaking, like literally, and I don't even cover all of it. So obviously ain't nobody paying that for this at this moment. Maybe 100 years from now, or at auction. Not even gonna say God willing, because we're less concerned about that one or the other. But at the moment, ain't nobody paying that. So we make it available. We share it for those who are devoted students to the cause and such, and they can copy the book verbatim, and the thing would be to copy the text verbatim, draw their own original drawings, and then they can do what they want with that, and they can make further copies. The actual mechanics of doing this probably would be about a couple hours, to be honest. Actually, maybe about 6 hours. So somebody could charge $50, $100 for a book. And it's not just a book; it's a craft. It's a product. It's like a painting. So and again, that might seem expensive. Do you know how much bread costs today? You think $6,000 is a lot to pay for a book? Do you know how much food costs? I was about to say milk, eggs. That's what oftentimes people in the United States think about in terms of food prices. What's the cost of a carton of milk? But if we're talking about non-dairy substances, yeah, I'm bantering. So anyways, that's what this is. And this is a culmination of years of studies and everything else like that, and previous works and projects and everything else like that. So again, the amount of hours, everything that goes in this, it's not even, how many hours have I lived? And not just I live, but everybody who teaches me before that. So obviously, when we reduce things to those type of terms, there ain't no paying for this. But meanwhile, we got to draw a line somewhere. So that's what this is. Now, the purpose of me stopping myself whilst I'm working is to share this joint. The topic of this one, Chapters of Creation, is the title of the book, essentially, or the focus of the book. It gives a very brief narrative, like a narrative of the narratives of creation, a compilation of the narratives of creation with the guidance of like the unity, like of the string that brings it all together, or like the continuity of it all together for the purpose of reconciliation today in this era of civilization. There's the concept of 3 epochs of civilization, 7 generations, and further. So anyways, that's the gist of it. And to be honest, one way of describing it is like back in the day, we had the Lonely Planet. When I was in South Africa, we did travel around, road trip, and brethren from Sweden had this thing called the Lonely Planet. There's another series of books, excuse me, that it was similar. I think I actually used that when I went to Cuba. I might still have a copy of that someplace. I might give it away already. But anyways, there were 2 basic books that gave like a huge detailed like tour guide kind of thing for students, backpackers, and stuff like that. So it's like an intuitive, here are the hostels, here's the hot spots to go to, and everything else like that. Very, very accessible to young people, teenagers, late teenagers, 20-somethings traveling on a low budget, like the skinny on the local scenes. So that's Lonely Planet. There's another one. There's a TV show called Globe Checker, I think it was. So there's those things. Then there's also that film that's like somewhat related but very different. There's a film, actually it was a book first, called A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So anyways, with all that frame of reference, the consideration for this joint is what we're doing here. is that it's a synopsis of civilization, very brief, but particularly the narrative of creation, and as a description of how the narratives, all the different narratives of creation, coalesce through the history of civilization to this day and how it continues to unfold. So one way of describing it is a hitchhiker's guide to the lonely planet. Wada, how about that? That's what this is. Illustrated, the illustrated illustrations. So that's what we're doing here. Now we share the joint of what we got to share for the moment. And I'm pausing here because I'm actually making an adjustment on this trace, which pertains to exactly the vicinity where I'm sitting, the region of the Great Lakes, and particularly the sequence of how the Great Lakes are construed, constructed, continued. All right, so how about I finish this thought before I get into this intricacy? And there is an intentionality with this sequence. I'm not going to get into all that, but I don't want to like skip this part just for the sake of doing this. So I'm going to focus here, just say what I'm about to say. I shared that narrative yesterday about that documentary about the military companies vying for that government contracting additionally. So as I'm doing this Hitchhiker's Guide to the Lonely Planet, and particularly recognizing the difference between the islands and the mainlands. I mean, if you have an understanding, or one of the things to understand and recognize about civilization is that there's the east-west of the northern hemisphere, or the northeastern quadrosphere. There's the east-west kind of paradigm. East being East Asia, China, Japan, Korea, and further, and then the west being Europe, Deutschland, England, France, and further, Scandinavia, and the whole like civilizational conflict to this day, East and West, in that context. But at the same time, those are two mirrors of the same thing very much. And the basic phenomenon is that there's a mainland contingency on both sides. There's China on the east side, and then there's Deutschland and France, mainland Europe on the other side. Then, as a counterbalance of that experience through the centuries, through millennia, there is the whole Japan-China binary, and then in Europe there is the France-Deutsch hyphenated kind of mainland Europe, and then England. Japan is an imperialist prominence in the region of East Asia. Britain is an imperialist presence in the Western region. So that's a standard in terms of observing civilization, particularly as it sits today, and recognizing that again, that mirror sequence, that mirror phenomenon, that is similar within East Asia as well as within Western Europe. Japan's relationship with China compared to Britain's relationship with mainland Europe, Brexit, and all that other stuff. Now, that's something we work on for years. We shared for years that awareness and contextualizing the progression of civilization accordingly, recognizing the influence of Judeo-Christian theology upon Western Europe, the mainland Britain experience, recognizing the influence of Desi religiosity, the Buddha, and concepts from the Vedas as it influences Japanese, Chinese, and Korean Buddhism and theology, recognizing the classics of Chinese civilization from Lao Tzu, Kong Tzu, and Meng Tzu within the influence of culture within China and East Asia, recognizing the influence of Greco-Roman civilization, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, within the influence of mainland Europe and in Britain culture. But particularly at the moment, the imperialism, how it differentiates the conflict between Japan and China, vying for power and influence, the conflict between Britain and mainland Europe, vis-a-vis Deutschland, Germany, and England, particularly specifically, but essentially even beyond those designations of nationalism is mainland versus the island, and how the island is that imperialistic, like the epitome of imperialism, because it's distanced from all the competitions of the mainland, all the huge population and all the different factions that give it power, but at the same time undermines itself from whereas with the island, it's a formidable island, to be away from what's going on in the mainland. So in some ways it's strong, but in other ways it's weird because it's smaller, but it's still an island. So in order to get there, people have to do things. Same thing with Japan and China. Same thing that plays out, and there's a back and forth in terms of prominence between the two. Um, Now, uh, the interesting thing at the moment that's shared as we're doing this is to tie in that element of militarism, whereby and how that affects culture, politics, civilization um, within each region. Uh, so basically, it's a matter of like recognizing the mainland. Obviously, there's the armies. That's from thousands of years. The mainland emphasizes army. It tends to be numbers, somewhat technology, in terms of how much people can like annihilate others. But that's basically methodology and the nature of the fluctuations of dynasty after dynasty. Similarly with Europe, all the ebbs and flows, the backs and forth with that. Now the thing is, when a population inhabits an island and things get kind of settled on that island, the island develops its unique mechanisms of defense, which primarily, initially, thousands of years ago, to recent days, maybe the past century, actually, yeah, the past century, it's been the naval forces. So that even though the mainland might have huge numbers, huge money, and everything else like that, they still need a huge navy to be able to get at the islands. Particularly looking at Japan and all the islands here, particularly populated by Japan, whereas with China, it's less so. Like, how is Japan able to do that with China right there? How are these islands, main islands of Japan, like Japan and stay Japan, whereas China's like, yeah, okay, fine, y'all got your space. Similarly with Britain, it's a little bit different with Britain, but similarly, the point is the islands, at some point in the civilizational progression, established formidable navies. And even when the mainland is like huge and doing things, it's significantly based upon army, standing armies, marching armies, as a military force, and not navies. And might have a navy, but not to the capacity of like being able to get at the islands, because that's all the islands got is the navy. And yeah, y'all might be doing your thing here, but you better come correct if you come to us, because you're gonna have to come by boat, and we got boats, and we gonna get at you, because that's all we do. Navy it up. So because of that, there's a certain amount of buffering from the mainland, and that gives some insulation and for culture to emerge, distinction, and further in innovations and ingenuity. And that goes back and forth because eventually the main be like, but you know what? We have been doing our thing, and we got a navy too. We can make a move, or whatever else. So it goes back and forth until this past century, when the game is changed, and then there is the advent of the aeroplane, and now it's not just a matter of navy; it's a matter of like aviation, and one of the ways that changes the game is that it's not just the well, then the United States gets into the mix too, because now the United States, yo, we doing things. The colony got something to say. The outcast got something to say. How about that? Um, and we got military, we got army, we got navy, and now we got planes. And the further point of this is how the planes factor into the civilizational distinctions of nations, similar to the distinction between standing armies and navies. It's unfolding. It's still like in it's still manifesting to be evidenced. Um, the distinction is technology capabilities, and those capabilities can be amassed and huge based upon even just from a small island like a Singapore or a city state or otherwise. It doesn't have to be an island of a lot of people or whatever else that stacks up a navy to fend off huge mainland forces that eventually get navies. The technology with airplanes is different. In the past century, particularly today with drones and everything else that can be manned from a completely different hemisphere, dropping bombs, doing surveillance, assassinating from sniper shots, and additionally, aviation. And the aviation goes even further into space aviation and intergalactic aeronautics, NASA and such. National Association of Space Aviation, is that what it is? Russia is having something similar, mainland Europe doing something, but the nature of that is different. It's not a mainland amalgamation of forces. It's not an island imperialistic mindset. It's a highly technologized, sequestered enclave type culture, and additionally, that has a tendency of being somewhat viral, acting like a virus, as like a parasite on civilization. To be honest, the mentality, because it's extremely intelligent, extremely feeble in terms of physical strength, but is able to do things when latching on to a bigger body. But it needs to stay with that body, and that body needs to be viable for the parasite to be viable too. So that's the nature of the highly advanced military technologies at the moment that we observe. The location is comparatively inconsequential. I mean, we can talk about the fortified bunkers of Antarctica at this point. But we're observing that as we're doing this, and just seeing how things happen historically, and how it's progressing. So anyways, we're going to keep it at that. Half an hour distraction to share that joint, to keep us from doing what we're doing. But that's okay, because ain't no stopping. Well, how about this? Ain't no woman like ain't no loving like the one I got. Is that one? That's not where we're going with, but that's what occurred. Then there's also ain't no half stepping. But that wasn't talking about stopping us. So we're not going to do the bad boy reference, even though that's probably the most applicable at the moment. What we can say at the moment is, move, beast, get out the way, get out the way. There's a catharsis within that little Christiosity. Again, peace and blessings. All things are praise the Most High, Elohim, blessed, love, and peace, Rastafari. Oh, don't sweat the. Oh, come on now. How clean are we? Ain't nobody dope as us. We just so fresh, so fresh and so clean. Come on, y'all. Look at how. Evidence of the necessity of a wife. How about that? A wife is not a maid, but how sacred and holy are maids? Just if we're going to talk about it. But we're talking about balance and partnership and support and the lack thereof. So evidence right there. And oh, we just still so pretty. All thanks to praise the Most High.